RWBY Volume 8, Episode 13, Worthy. So this incredibly late review is brought to you by my daughter, who is currently not here. I got to drop her off for a quick minute before heading back, which is why her stuff is in the background. Filmed this review earlier. Had to cut in the middle because she woke up. So we were doing a whole thing. Second half of the review, she was in it, just looking around, being cute and whatnot. Transfer that to my computer. The whole second little portion of the video was just corrupted, and I was like, cool. So all that stuff with my daughter was gone, so I had to just redo the whole thing. Otherwise it was just me anyway. So I was like, well, that sucks. So now I'm redoing the review like 5 hours later, and it was an interesting episode. We lost Yang, of course, RIP. Yeah, she's fine, we'll find her later. I think they're going to do a cliffhanger. I think the end of this season's cliffhanger is going to be showing what happened to Yang. I think that's what they're going to tease us with going into this next volume. That's what it's going to be. Unless they bring her back in like 2 episodes, which I think would be super stupid. And it was just like it's so quick. Like, we know she's going to be fine. But if you're going to do something as obvious as that, at least make us wait a little bit. At least force the characters to have to deal with a real change. Like, that's really the main thing. Like, we instantly know. Like, once it's a main character, if it was like Jean or somebody, would be like, I doubt it. Especially if it was Jean, because I'd be like, there's no way they killed him off. And they literally haven't even gone through his semblance yet. They're basically just like slow jerking on that one. So we would definitely know he'd be okay too. But one of the main characters of the show, one of the like core letters of the series, she'll be fine. We'll just have to wait and see. She'll be out of the show. I would hope at least she'll be out of the show maybe until the mid-season finale for the next volume. I'd be like, all right, I'd allow for that. Personally, I think that would be enough time for her to be out of the series. And, maybe we'll get glimpses of what she's doing and we'll get to actually see what's happening. But as far as them actually bringing her back and reuniting her with the characters, I think they should at least do it halfway, if not later, into the next season. And if they do show us exactly what she's going through, then maybe we could just see that as her own little storyline of her just kind of being stuck. If there's even a lot to really tell there, if it's not just her with like the randos that Cinder kind of knocked off in the opening segment. If it's not just her and a bunch of randos just walking around an empty open field where they never tire and they never hunger or something simple like that, then maybe there's nothing to really see. But there's going to be something there. They're going to find a way to get her back. I would assume them going to Vacchio, it's like, oh, okay, well, step number 3 on the, artifact tour is like, all right, well, we got the final question has been asked, but, they could get the lamp back. It won't matter either way at this point. Well, I guess it still technically does, because getting all of them together was really the main purpose. So, they can get the lamp, they have the spear, they can go on to the crown, and I think the other one's a sword, if I'm not mistaken. I think one of them's like another type of weapon, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, it's been a minute. That was like a World of Remnant episode, I feel like, when they showed that off. But I think whatever they end up going for next, whatever the next item is going to be, artifact is going to be, that's what's going to allow them to find Yang. Unless, suddenly Raven pops up and is like, oh, I can go to magic dimensions too. I mean, she is part magic. You never ever know. But I liked it. I thought it was cool. I was like, all right, so that's who they decided to choose. I mentioned in my last review, I was like, I don't know who I would choose out of really any of the characters. Like, who would I choose to have kind of fall off and die? And I guess it kind of sucked the heart out of, like the holy crap out of the story once it was Yang. Because I was like, oh, if it's any of the main 4, it just kind of hit me where I was like, oh, I don't, they'll be fine. But a lot of potential as far as the other characters' reactions and what could happen there. But I realized as soon as that happened, I was like, I would have chose RWBY. Like, it just, as soon as that moment actually happened and it was Yang that flew off, I was like, if it was RWBY, and I mean, obviously she would have been like straight up murdered, because apparently, and this is something they've decided to just make a real thing, swords are just straight up OP. If you're doing like one cut, like a cool samurai thing like Winter, you get a one-hit kill and that's it. Like, it just blows away people's aura. It can stab straight through stuff. I don't know if that's all swords, because I feel like Blake has never actually fought anybody as far as another human being and actually just tried to cut someone. Like, she's always swinging around and shooting, but I'm like, when was the last time we actually saw her use her sword? I'm sure she has, so I'm being very dramatic when I say like she's never actually fought anyone and tried to like cut them. But I swear, every time they do it, I'm like, I know she's fought a million Grimm and she does her cool stuff where she's like flipping around and flying, but I'm like, has she ever really used it? Like Adam, that was his whole thing. Like, if he cut someone, he killed them and he would stab through them because they just went through the aura. And it seems like that's what Penny does now. Or not Penny, Neo. Where it was just like one hit. And I was like, okay, so she was going for the kill. But if her aura, RWBY's aura was up, she still would have been fine, right? But apparently not, because I'm like, if that was a kill, then that would have been like her going through her aura, and Yang was in like her Super Saiyan mode. So it's not just like, oh, well, she was already fighting and she was kind of weak. And I was like, okay, I could kind of see that if she took like a bunch of hits and that's just how it was. But Cinder was going through four separate people. She was going through all of Team RWBY, so they're kind of balancing off their auras and stuff. And she basically went supercharged, utilizing her semblance to run in and take the brunt of that hit. And I'm like, I don't think Neo has like excessively super strength. And all she did was one slash, and it just blew everything away. It blew her aura away. It sent her flying. And I'm just like, I feel like they just magically, if you use a sword slash, you're super powerful now. Because, Winter did that on Ironwood. Once again, he went through a fight as well. But it was just like, okay, that just blew away his aura and completely knocked him unconscious. Just that one magical hit that she did. And obviously, Adam's whole thing was that his sword just went through aura. But now they kind of make it seem like that's automatic now. And it's just based on these last two episodes, it's just like, I know they were technically fighting. But for that to just be like the ultimate move and it just completely wiped them out, it's just like, that's interesting. Especially in Neo's case. In Winter's case, I could kind of see it just because of her having, well, technically Neo is powerful too. But I don't know, it just made more sense for me as far as the Winter thing. I was like, okay, I could kind of see it, and they made it hyper stylized. They're like, clearly she did some fancy stuff with just lights flashing. But with Neo, it was just like, I just want to, stab Ruby in the back, and then Yang got in the way, and she just knocks her off. Like, she just swipes in the air and kills her. So I was like, okay, sword slashes are OP, which I'm fine with personally, but it was just like, it seems weird that it would just like blow her aura away. Like, I can understand if it hit her and the impact of it knocked her down, or just that, and she still had her aura. But I guess them knocking the aura out was their excuse for her falling, because if she was awake, she would have been like, oh crap, and she could have used her shotguns. So I get why they did it, but I was just really shocked. Like, not just one little slash. Like I said, I know she was fighting Cinder, but they all were. They didn't have like a thing where it was like, oh, everyone got knocked down, excuse me, and she kind of started to really go in, and she was taking the brunt of the force against Cinder. It was just normal, like everything was fine. But they've done that before. They did it in the Mansion episode where everybody was just getting knocked out. I was like, oh, I tripped, boom, Weiss hitting pianos, and just her aura just shatters. So I'm like, when they need to, the aura is just like this much left, and then they're done for. So we lost Yang for a little bit. We'll see what happens with her. We lost Jacques for real. I can't really say lost because it's like meh with the guy, but story wise, we lost him. I don't think he's coming back. I mean, he got hit with like a freaking special beam cannon, and he is gone. He is dead. So I was like, oh, okay. So that kind of sucks, but we'll get to that when I get to all the madness that has continued with Ironwood. So we'll get to that later. But I like the action of this episode. I thought it was actually entertaining. Visually, I thought it was great. I like the actual stuff that they did as far as like the hand-to-hand stuff was kind of just okay. Even the stuff between Ruby and Neo was probably the coolest part, but they showed it so little because they were cutting through like this really dramatic moment of like, oh crap, Cinder's over there fighting Penny, and Penny can't really hold up, and Blake is losing it because she wants to take out Neo, but then Cinder has to move from Penny to Weiss, and so it's like they were kind of jumping around a lot. I didn't really focus on like every time Neo fights, except that time she got punched by Oscar, which I still don't get. Aside from that moment, anytime Neo fights, it's just super smooth and agile and dodging everything, and it just looks super cool. So we didn't get to see too much of that, but visually, we still got some nice stuff. Cinder making like a flame tornado, and her flying around was nice. Penny forms her swords again, but they're like crystal swords now, because obviously they don't just pop out of her back. So I thought that was nice. I was like, oh, she's she still has her abilities and stuff. She's walking around barefoot, which I just find funny. So I'm curious what they're gonna do in the next volume when they like give her. I don't know if they'll just give her shoes or they'll, the high boots or whatever, or if they'll give her a brand new costume. But it will be interesting to see if they change, going into this next volume. But I like the action. I thought it was entertaining to watch. I'm kind of excited to see what ends up happening with Crow. The start of that was pretty cool. Like the way that he comes in, and obviously we see the Crow, and then little cloud to hide him magically changing, and then he just pops out, and Harry's just like, whoa, what the F, and he just blasts through the windshield. I thought that was cool. I was like, that was a cool moment. He tackles her, they both fall all the way down the ladder, and then it's like, I guess you're gonna get that fight. So now they're going back and forth. The bomb has been armed. Vine might be able to pull himself back in. I assume he will, but it seems like, based on how they showed it in this episode, it's almost like every time they show it, they never show him actually like slowly pulling himself forward. So I'm sure he'll find a way back in. He'll be fine. But the bomb has been armed, and the autopilot has been taken over by Watts. So I don't know where he plans on taking the bomb to. If it's going to be for Atlas or if it's going to be for Mantle. Considering where he is, I would assume he would drop it on Mantle and not where he's currently at, because that would be kind of stupid. So that's probably headed down to Mantle, which it was anyway. But now it's going to blow up kind of his own accord, and maybe it'll end up somewhere else. We don't really know. Like, it could go somewhere else as well. But I like that idea. It's like, okay, that was like just a little moment, like him just sitting at the chair. We see that he's the one that cut off the signal. And so I was like, all right, this is interesting. I like how this is handled. The fact that the whole episode is based on the fact that the villains are actually doing good stuff. I was like, this is nice. They were smart. In the beginning, Cinder's like, no, she learned her lesson. Watts' semblance of, truth through pain. I guess it finally got to her. And she was like, dang, I need to not be me. So I apologize. She apologizes to Neo. She's like, I do need the lamp though. And I like that Watts kind of sighed because he was like, oh, here we go. Like, it didn't work. But she actually had a real teamwork plan. Now, if that matters to Salem when she comes back, I think is a different question. I don't know if Salem will consider, which I don't think she's going to succeed. I don't think she's going to, take out Penny as well. I think that, Yang dropping was like the big thing. So I don't think she's going to get Penny. So the fact that she doesn't get her, I'm very curious if that's going to mean anything. Because it's like, oh, so you used my question. And yeah, you took out Yang. That's cool. But she wasn't, technically speaking, she's not that much of a threat on the individual level. But you let Penny go, who is like the one thing that we truly need. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they would do that. And if they did, that would really suck. Because now they've killed Penny. They've made her human. And then they kill her again after she comes the new human maiden, and then they kill her. I highly doubt they're gonna do that, because that would be so effed up to do. At one point it was like, okay, it's possible that they kill her again, but then she became the maiden, and now she's human, and I'm just like, nah, she's not gonna succeed. Like, there's no way they're gonna capture her, because if they capture her, they're gonna kill her. So they're not gonna capture her. They're not gonna kill her. Penny's gonna escape. So it's like, Salem might be super pissed. Like, I understand you used the question to kind of do what needed to be done, but you also failed. And failure is like the main thing when it comes to Salem, where she's like, you keep failing all the time. And this is the one time she was at least doing it in the right way. But if she fails again, who the F cares? She used up the final question, and Salem's immortal, but who wants to wait 100 years? So I'm curious how that's gonna play out, because I'm like, I don't think Salem's gonna give a crap, considering she fails. So kind of excited for that. We'll see how it ultimately plays out. Cinder finds out that Emerald has joined the heroes, so she got, she had that little moment like, oh, that's betrayal. That sucks. So she she dealt with that in the vision and was just like, and then kind of moved past. Was like, look, we got plans to do. They kill all the people in the security room. That was actually one of my favorite scenes, where it was just like, everyone kind of realizes, and as soon as they scream and run off, they just cut, and it's just fire and like dead bodies. I was like, that's actually cool. That I actually thought was a really cool moment. It was like, the villains are doing cool villain things. They're succeeding. They had, honestly, a genius idea. It was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. What do they have planned? And then they figure out the whole plan, and then they just start wiping people out, and they go and attack. They still, I'll be honest though, I will say this. Despite knowing the plan, I still don't think they did like the best that they possibly could have done with what they knew. Because despite everything, I know that the plan was like, hey, I'm going to get Penny. Neo, you're going to get RWBY. That's how we're going to do it. We're going to have our teamwork. I'll distract them and fight them, and then you can sneak up on RWBY, get the kill in while they're distracted, then I can go ahead and, attack Penny. Which kind of works, as far as Cinder's plan, it still works. She got the distraction she needed from a death, and then that kind of brought Penny to her. But for Neo's plan, it failed. But I'm just like, I feel like they could have just done it really easy. Neo, considering she can turn into other people, she could have just been like, oh, all right, well, just, hey, well, she can't speak, so that wouldn't work. Never mind, I guess that wouldn't work, but they could have just snuck up on somebody. But instead, she was just like, boom, big explosion, I'm over here. And I'm like, they easily could have done that in a totally different way. Like, she could have easily have just snuck up on Penny and taken her down. Or, Neo could have done the same thing and just been like, just found a better way to do it. And I get what they were kind of going for while actually watching it, where it's like, oh, it's just Cinder, but then here comes Neo with the sneak attack. I'm like, even then they could have done it better, because they easily could have had Neo just hit him with the sneak attack without causing, like the big explosion. But it was for us. The action was nice. It was cool to watch. So I enjoyed the episode for the most part. The action was decent. Jean, the whole scene with the people trying to figure out what the portal was, and then Jean coming through and getting hit with the rock by the one dude, and then he like dive behind. That was the funniest scene in like the whole episode. I love that whole scene. Like, what is it? And pushes the dude, and as soon as he throws the rock, Jean comes in like, everyone, and he's like, ow, and he just takes off. That was a great scene. That was just super funny. Harriet has a great conversation with Vine. That was a good moment. Of course, that got interrupted by Robin, and then the battle, and she just kicked Vine straight out. It was like, nope, I'm gonna do it. It's the principle, and it is what it is. Evil stuff, I guess, at this point. Most of the episode entertaining. We also have Vacuo, which could possibly lead to two of my favorite characters showing up, possibly detectiving their way through some Grim. I don't know. It's possible. Clearly, Emerald, Oscar, and Ren need some help. So they could do that. They might be able to do that. Also, what happened to Nora, by the way? Am I crazy? Or did she, like, disappear for, like, the second half of the episode? Because she was helping people a bunch. And then when Cinder showed up, she was not in that fight at all. But she's also not with the other three characters. Unless she did go through with him and I didn't notice that. I don't think she went through with Ren, Oscar, and Emerald. And I know Jean's doing his thing. And so I guess that's what Pyrrha is doing as well, but they just didn't show it. But I was like, she kind of disappeared, and it just didn't dawn on me for a minute. I was like, she just randomly vanished out of nowhere. So everyone's spread out. The action seems cool. Tensions are rising. Yang is dead, and then we have Ironwood stuff. And I don't want him to die. I'll be honest. At this point, I know Rooster Teeth will never see this, but at this point, I'm just like, if they just let him live, I'll give up complaining about Adam. I think that's all I got at this point. That's like why one bargaining chip is not bringing up how stupid it was that they killed Adam. I mean, at least Raven's alive. She could come back. Adam's just gone, and that hurts. Ironwood, he's got a chance. They could just have it where he's defeated. He shed his singular man tear, like, Winter, you're my buddy old pal, and now I gotta hit you with this hyper beam cannon. So I don't know if they're actually going to kill him. I highly doubt they'll kill Winter. That would be crazy, and I really hope they don't. Amongst all the characters in the show, I think Weiss and Winter oddly have like the best chemistry out of anybody. At one point, I would have definitely said Blake and Sun, but that ship has sailed in all respects. That ship has sailed. Like, them just even kind of being friends is just, like, it's been so long. So at this point, the only chemistry that I feel truly exists is between Weiss and Winter. So I hope they don't kill Winter off. I think they already have a lot of interesting stuff coming from Jacques dying, or at least like a little bit of interesting stuff, because it would have been cooler if he lived, and even if he stayed like the same douchey character, it would have been cool to see the family have to deal with him after everything they've dealt with in this volume, because they've already begun to kind of mend fences. Like, obviously Whitley is basically just cool now. Like, Whitley's cool. Their mom at least talked to them a little bit. We got some more information out of her and kind of the issues she deals with and trying to help and stuff. Like, we even saw her summon a board to help her son out. So they've been mending fences while he's away, and that's almost like the exact same thing as him being dead. Like, these 4 family members, well, Winter wasn't really super involved, but the family has kind of come together just enough to be like, oh, this is what it's like when he's not around. They get to mend those fences. They get to build a little bit. And now that he's died, they don't get to have those mended fences and then reintroduce him and be like, we're now stronger as a unit because you were the thing that was destroying all of our lives, as we grew up. So they could have confronted him, and that would have been an entertaining moment. And now it's like, well, he's just dead, so they're just mending fences. And it's like, oh, it's sad that Dad died, but I mean, let's be honest. How hard are they gonna cry over this dude? Like, when everything's all said and done, it's gonna be sad for them because it's still their father and our husband. But it's just like they never even got to confront him, and that's the one thing where I'm like, that sucks that they did that. Not to mention the fact that the way he died was even dumber than anything else, because Ironwood had no reason to actually kill him. Like, I know they wrote him in full evil mode now, and he fought the heroes and stuff, and he got arrested and everything. But I'm just like, him killing him didn't make a lot of sense. Like, when he killed the guy in the beginning of this volume, that was because those two people were specifically like, you're not doing this, and they were getting in the way of what he felt was like the direct thing, or the the perfect thing to do. They were opposition. They were like flatline opposition, line in the sand. Once you get to where you are right now, that's it for us. Like, we're not gonna let you do that. So he killed that guy, and it was just like, oh, he put him down, and he, the woman kind of was like, oh snap, and so she kind of got out of the way, and it was like, that was it. Jacques was arrested, and it didn't matter. This dude did nothing. He's just like the douchebag in the cell who's been there the whole volume. Like, I don't know. They just had him just locked up in a little cell, and then he just gets killed. And I hope they explain this. Otherwise, it's insanely dumb and convenient. But I assumed, and this was just me hoping that it made sense, but his thing, like, flickering on and off, I thought that was Watts. So, I'm about to... Whew, excuse me. Wow. Excuse me. I needed that. That felt great. So, I was hoping it was Watts. Going through that, I was like, okay. Makes no sense. They're going through this whole thing. Wow. They're going through this whole thing. And so, they've been locked up for a couple of minutes, like I said. I mean, technically, the last episode and this one is just, one after the other. But them being locked up, it was weird that, only his pylons, kind of flickered out. And I was like, it didn't instantly shut off. And that would have been really easy that it was Watts. And I was like, I hope that this was some really cool, smart, subtle, subconscious sort of play by Watts. Where it's like, let me make it look like it's flickering out, but I'm going to do it because it seems weird that only one of those poles, because basically it was 3 poles. So it's like you have Jacques and his thing, his is all lined up, and you got 1, 2, 3. And so the middle piece is fine. Jacques is on the right, his is fine. And then that one little thing on the left side just kind of messes up. So Ironwood is just able to walk right out. And I'm like, that's odd that that's the only one. Because I'm pretty sure the other little cells were still working behind them. I'm like, so only his opened up. That's either excessively dumb plot convenience, which I hope it's not, or they'll reveal in the next episode, much like they did with this and, Jean's broadcast, that it was Watts that did that. Maybe they'll show in the next episode Watts was the one that let him out, and he just made it seem like something happened, because if he just turned it off, it would be more obvious, like, oh, someone let me out. I should probably look into that. But in this case, it's just like, oh, well, that's fortunate for me. Let me do what I want to do. It's more subtle, so he doesn't instantly go looking for how he escaped. He just does what he's going to do next. So I'm hoping that's what happened, and it wasn't just this excessively dumb convenience that only his thing opened up, and everything else in the whole room was fine. Like, no lights flickered, nothing happened. Only that one little shield in front of him messed up. Not on the side, not anywhere else. Just the entrance to his little cell opened right up. It just flickered, and it opened up, and he walked out. And I was like, that is either dumb, or they're just going to show it was Watts that did it, and it was a cool little subconscious thing because they knew that he was on edge. And, if they did it like, oh, that's dumb luck for me, that he would just go out and cause more chaos. I hope that's what they do. Otherwise, that was stupid, because it makes no sense, and it was just random luck. So, we'll see in the next episode. It'll probably just end up being super random, but as soon as I saw that, I was like, that seems too convenient. I think it's Watts. I hope I'm right, but we'll just have to wait and see for that. But he kills Jacques, and I was like, no reason to do that, but, super mega evil mode. Also, why'd they leave his guns there? I know Winter, just arrested him, and she put him there, but I'm like, take the guns with you, or... So I guess as soon as she arrested him, she put him in the cage and instantly went down to the vault. Like, that's why she was down there. Because I was confused at first. I was like, it doesn't make sense that she would go down to the vault. And then I realized, I was like, oh, no, this episode is literally, a minute after the last episode. That's why they still had Robin and Crow and Miro in the exact same location, which I thought they left, but I guess that wasn't the case. And he's still holding on to them while they're having conversations and everything. Apparently, Miro just, when they need it, it works for a super long time. Also, he didn't think to just be like, oh crap, that thing's gonna blow up. Stay. He instead jumped in front of it as it exploded, and it knocked him unconscious. And so I was just like, is it the whole premise of this dude? If he sees something that needs to be stopped, he can literally just be like, stop, and that's what he does. And instead he was like, no, and he jumped in front of it because, they shot arrows at it. Like, Robin literally shot 2 arrows, and he waited as it was running towards him. I love that they have explosive features, though. That's a very interesting defense mechanism, but it does make a lot of sense. And it's running at them, shrugs off the 2 bolts. And then he just jumps in front of it. And I know that by the time he waited, because they did the classic, holy crap, let's pause for a couple seconds. Oh, hold on, now I'll react. So, of course, he screwed up and waited long enough. But I'm like, he could have just stopped it as it was running towards them. Like, oh, it shrugged off those 2 arrows. Stay. And obviously, he would have, I feel like they would have known. It's weird interworld stuff where it's like, realistically, Crow and Robin might not have known that it literally had a bomb inside of it. But he would have. And that's the thing. I'm like, he would have seen that, and he would have known way before it got there. He would have known there was a bomb. So I'm just like, that's a little off. But leads to the next scene. He's knocked out. They save him. Harriet, takes off. She gets on the thing. Vine follows after her. They still have Elm. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens in the next episode. I was like, okay, they do their thing. And so we cut to the end of the episode, or pretty much the end of the episode. Winter's at the vault. She sees the little light. And once again, this is another storytelling thing. I'm like, every person I feel on TV is just like, what is that? Everybody acts like cats when they see those things. They're just like, that's interesting. It's always a laser sight. Like, it's never anything but that. You're about to be shot in the face. Like, I don't understand it. There's no reason when you're, especially in a war scenario, like when it's random and it's just like, what is that? I let it slide. But it's like, you're literally in a war scenario. You see a laser sight on the ground and it's just kind of moving around and she's just watching it and literally turns around and looks as it goes up and then she's like, oh, and she has to like use a glyph to block most of it before it knocks her back. And I'm just like, once again, like, what are you thinking is happening here? It's just like, oh, pretty little dot. It's just one of those random things. So I was like, okay. He comes down, Ironwood's super pissed. He's full of mega villain mode. He's got his guns inside the cannon, and he's ready to kill her. And it's like, final rule, final order, step aside. She says no, and she, does the dual wield thing, which I'm not going to lie, I completely forgot she had that. I don't think she used it when she fought against Cinder, and I know we've seen that before. But I swear, I feel like the last time she dual wielded was way back when she first met Crow, in the series at least, was the first time they fought. I feel like she may have dual wielded, but it was probably somewhere after that. I don't remember, but I'm like, I feel like this is literally only the second time they've ever shown her actually dual wield before. So I was like, this should be entertaining at the very least. I think it's about to look super cool to watch her dual wield against this guy. I don't know how it's going to work where he's got, like his giant cannon thing. Like maybe she'll find a way to destroy it and then it'll be a much more entertaining fight. Because it's going to be super boring if she's just dodging around and he's just doing this the whole time with like a giant cannon on him. So I hope she cuts it and then he has to use, dual wield with his guns and she's got to dual wield with her blades. It's a cool battle. Personally, I think there's a lot of potential. We'll just see if it's as cool as I can imagine in my head, because there's a lot of ideas you can do with one person dual wielding guns and then one person dual wielding swords, but that person can like hop around the room faster than the guy with guns, who is also like mostly robot at this point, and so he could probably take more hits than she could, but she has the speed. He had, speed versus brute force, far range tactics versus getting up close and personal. So it's like that balancing act between these two characters could lead to an amazing fight, and we just have to wait and see. So I hope it happens. I hope he doesn't die. I hope neither of them die. They just capture Ironwood, find a way to write him correctly. Like, remember in Volume 3 when everything's going to hell and it's like, kids, this is absolute chaos. You got two options. You can fight or you can leave. And then there's a long pause and he's just like, the military dude is like, you think he'll be like, it's time to fight and do this. It's just like, if you leave, nobody would follow you for that. I was like, he gets it. They're still kids. He understands what it means to not just have soldiers in war, like child soldiers. It's like, no, these are still children. They're not ready for this. If they feel they're ready, then I will allow them to fight. But if they don't want to, then it's like, yeah, they're effing kids. This is crazy. I didn't expect this. So this is a dude who understands. This is a dude who just time and time again is just like, all right, let's see what we can do. Let's try to figure this out. We need to stop Salem. That's all he wants to do. He's freaking out, but he's trying to make it work. And they're just like, something about him we can't trust. I try not to harp on it all the time, but I'm like, they led him to this. That's all they had to do is just trust the guy, and it makes no sense that they didn't. And that's why I think RWBY could have fallen out and been like, that's cool, because it was her idea to make that dumb secret. And ultimately, it was Yang's idea to trust Robin, which wasn't a bad plan. Ultimately, that actually worked, which, once again, another reason to just trust Ironwood. Even after they lied to him, it was like, okay, her literal semblance is that you have to tell the truth. I have nothing to hide from the people of my town, or my whole city, both cities. And he told the truth on television. Everything he did was basically like, don't worry, I'm not going to betray you. And they were just, I try not to, but like no show has ever actually made me despise like the main characters sometimes. And it's just RWBY. It's just RWBY. She made the choice. Everyone else went along with it, so everybody's to blame. But it's just like, it makes no sense. How is he the bad guy? And now it's just like, yeah, we just made him crazier and crazier till you just have to accept it. Because, genocide bad. I gotta admit, there's kind of no coming back from that. But there could be. They don't have to kill off everybody that's cool by just making them dumb and then killing them. They could just try. So I hope they do. We'll see what happens. We got like 2 episodes left. I would love to know your thoughts on this. It's just crazy. I like the episode because the villains pretty much were winning in this episode, and that's what I've wanted since the beginning of the season. Honestly, like I think in that episode where they kidnapped Oscar, I was like, this is what I want. I want the heroes to actually have to lose, and them losing Yang, and even if it's going to be temporary, I'm okay with that as long as they don't suddenly save her at the end of this volume, which they can't, except for some stupid reason. I'm okay with that. I'm like, okay, I know it's temporary because it's Yang. It's one of the main freaking characters. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay. Why is it always Yang, by the way? That just popped into my head, too. Arm chopped off, second crazy disaster mode by Yang. Like, can anybody suffer? Like, it's really only Yang. When you really look at it, lost her arm. Ironwood, the dude who gave her an arm, by the way, another reason to trust him. Just saying. But it's always Yang. It's weird. She'll be fine, though. We'll see her later. But I did enjoy the episode. I'm definitely excited. I really hope Sun shows up. I like Neptune, but Sun is my number one. So I hope they both show up in this next episode because they're there, I hope. But I would love to know your thoughts on this one. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And, of course, thanks for watching.